What happened tonight?
Well, a whole lot. Not that good of a basketball game, to be honest with you. The Warriors got down early, stayed down the whole time, made a nice run, and then got their butts
Warriors
kicked.
lost a road game. What a shocker!
Well, right. The worst team in the non-Wemby sweepstakes division on the road lost another road game. Now, look, this was one where they lost it at FedEx Forum, where there are some notable empty seats courtside. I will say, certainly related, a notable absence in the starting lineup. Well,
So the Ja family seats were just empty. They didn't.
Yeah,
just
T. Moran and Ja's friends were not in those courtside seats.
But they were just empty, or they just weren't there.
They weren't there. They were empty.
Oh wow,
Kennedy Chandler's dad actually was sitting there for a little while, the rookie reserve point guard. So no John Morant, no Steven Adams, and we don't know when Ja is going to be back. At least 3 more games. Steven Adams likely is out the rest of the regular season. Brandon Clark certainly out the rest of the regular season. The Grizzlies obviously had a really rough week or so, badly needed a win, kicked the Warriors' butts. We had the fireworks between pregame, between Dillon Brooks and Draymond Green, where Dillon Brooks gave our colleague Tim Keown some very interesting quotes. A really good story. You should read it if you haven't, on Dillon the villain, including him blasting Draymond Green, talking about how much he didn't like him. Draymond declined comment at the time and blasted back on his podcast, timed it to last night, the night before the game. Brooks tried to initiate a little conversation late in the first half where he scored over Draymond and got chest to chest, and Draymond didn't reply. Draymond post-game had plenty to say, including that scoffing at the suggestion that Grizzlies and Warriors is a rivalry. Now, they've ended each other's seasons the last 2 years. The Grizzlies winning in the Bay in the last play-in game in 2021. The Warriors, sending the Grizzlies home in the West semis last year in 6 games. But can't be a rivalry, according to Draymond, because one team's won 4 championships, one team's never won a championship. And Draymond, this is good. He says one team has to win and then another team has to win. That's what creates a rivalry. Now, again, they have swapped in each other's seasons, but he doesn't matter. Not because one team gets up for you and talk like they can beat you and then not. That doesn't create a rivalry. Rivalries are created by you win, I win. Clearly, we've won 4 times. I think the organization has 0 championships, so I can't consider that a rivalry. And then I said, so when you say win, you mean like May and June, not March. Anybody can win in March. What that mean? I have a hard time getting out of my bed in March. What's a game in March mean? So that's Draymond. Then Dillon took longer than normal. And listen, he is I don't know how much you guys have interacted with him. He is a really nice guy, which you would never imagine given his on-court persona, but
he's Canadian. Of course he's a nice guy.
So he gets dressed, he puts on his Dior pants, his Dior sweater, which he was planning on wearing a clown shirt to the game, and then decided against it because Draymond Green ended the podcast thing by saying.
So he just announced he was going to wear a clown shirt?
He mentioned this as he was putting his Dior sweater on. He said, yeah, I was going to wear a clown shirt, but he said, I didn't want to feed into that before the game. Because Draymond ended the thing with, you're not a champ, you're a clown. So he says he's going to wear the clown shirt to the next game, though. And then, of course, he puts on, I think they were Louis Vuitton shades. I might have my brand off, but Dillon's got an extensive designer shades collection. Puts his shades on. And he was doing a whole lot of eye rolling behind those shades. And I mean, Dillon had all kinds of good stuff. It was fun. The probably a couple of
wasn't that, by the way, just real quick, wasn't that one of KG's great trash talks where he would just say, where's your face paint, when he would, where's your face paint, clown? That's an old thing.
I would bet there's a few 4-letter words in there as well.
Of course, of course.
But Dillon did say that he was eager to see what Draymond had to say during the game and was a little bit disappointed that he took the media approach, as he said, didn't say nothing, which is cool.
The
He
new media
said,
approach. He took the new media approach.
yeah. He said he did imply that the Warriors might dump Draymond. He said we'll see at the end of the year what they do with him. That was interesting. He was asked, "Hey, did the podcast bother you?" He said, "No, because I know I'm a better player than him. I can do the same stuff that he does. That's easy. That's just showing up to work. Me, I try to score." Editorial comments, sometimes too much, oftentimes. Anyways,
That
went
was
on
not
and on. But he
that
said,
was not part of the quote. That was huge jumping in.
I said editorial
within-
comment, but he said, I try to score, I try to figure out plays, I try to call plays for my team. It gets good here. Just the fact that he was trying to pin my teammates against me, that was a low blow. So that's what type of player he is. These are my guys. We grew it all together. I ain't out there getting in physical altercations with my teammates. I sit there and talk to them, try not to break them down, but build them up. He had a lot, and there's a lot of good stuff. He did accuse Draymond of just using my name to get his podcast up. I mean, it was a
the quote that you left out. The quote that you left out that I enjoyed was Draymond scoffing at the suggestion that he could be baited into getting a technical foul and that he only gets technical fouls when he wants to.
Yes,
I believe you and I were covering the Western Conference Finals back in 2016 when there were some certain instances with flagrant fouls with another guy who wasn't playing in that game today in Memphis. You know, there's been a few things with Draymond over time.
Yeah, and I always mention you're referring to Steven Adams and some of the nut shots.
Yes.
And one of my favorite
Do
quotes
you know why
time.
one of the reasons players hate Steven Adams so much?
Why?
Actually, Kendrick Perkins and Tristan Thompson were telling me this. I'd never heard this until recently, and I've watched it, and it's true. For a long time, Steven Adams, whenever somebody goes up for a rebound, he's got this move where he grabs the players by their flank and pinches them. And he's got gigantic, very strong hands. And according to Perkins, well, maybe I shouldn't say that who told me, but I don't know. They don't care. According to Perkins Tristan, it hurts like
they're
hell.
not playing against Steven Adams anymore. It ain't gonna
That's right. And so,
plus Perk doesn't exactly worry about ruffling feathers.
That is true, as an aside. And famously, in Steven Adams' rookie year, they went to Game 7 when he was with the Thunder against the Memphis Grizzlies, grit and grind. And Zach Randolph got suspended for the vital Game 7 because he basically sucker punched Steven Adams coming up the court in Game 6. None of us saw it. We had no idea. All of a sudden, the day I was covering that series. I was driving in between Memphis and Oklahoma City because it was faster than flying. Long story. And I remember getting this text message.
Long drive.
The NBA just announced Zach was suspended for. I was like, what? For what? Anyway, it's because Zach was tired of Steven Adams pinching him on the side. That's all I'm going to say. Go ahead.
Well, and that's funny because certainly that was discussed a lot when the Grizzlies traded for Steven Adams before last season. These folks have the Grizzlies fans have long memories, as I was reminded every time Andre Iguodala got the ball today, and he was. I was like, I forgot about that. And they have the Warriors pick next year. By
the way, the Grizzlies were fine with Iguodala. They got a pick for taking him. They got assets for trading him out. I mean, there was
you know who wasn't fine with him? Dillon Brooks, who ripped him and basically said, well, I want us to trade him and I want to play him.
That's
so we
right.
can show him what we've got here. And
that's
and
right.
All that. And Ja wasn't good with it and all that. So Steven Adams, though, unfortunately out, like I said, probably for the rest of the regular season. But going back to the little crotch kicks, one of my all-time favorite quotes is when he was asked, because it happened twice in that series.
That's
and
correct.
He was asked, hey, do you think these were intentional? And he said, it's not that big a target, mate.
He is one of a kind.
He certainly is.
Now this one, look, Draymond, it's like him saying it's not a rivalry is obviously just him further disrespect from Draymond to the Grizzlies and intentional disrespect, obviously, but it's absolutely a rivalry. There's so much going on. And the Warriors hate Dillon Brooks. The Grizzlies hate Draymond Green.
A lot of teams don't like Dillon Brooks.
A lot of
A
teams
lot.
don't
And a
like
lot of
Draymond.
teams don't like Draymond Green.
I was gonna say
That's true.
what's hilarious is these two guys.
It's like the Spider-Man meme.
It is the Spider-Man meme. That's exactly what it is.
Draymond's resume is clearly at a significantly different level.
Of course, but it is the Spider-Man meme. These are two guys who annoy everyone, who are now going at each other every time they play.
Yeah, they are absolutely extremely similar players and personalities. And I really enjoy watching and dealing with both of these dudes. To me, these guys are hysterical.
Yeah. So my opinion on this whole trash talk back and forth is they're both right.
They both are speaking a lot of truth.
Maybe not every single statement. And let me ask you something else. Both these dudes are free agents, potentially in the offseason.
Well,
Draymond.
We'll see about Draymond. That's interesting.
Okay, let me rephrase. Both of them can be free agents in the offseason. Who's going to be more desired?
Draymond. I mean, listen, I like Dillon Brooks a lot.
You could argue both guys could not be on their teams next year.
No, which both guys have implied about the other one.
Right.
You know,
they're both right.
It's great.
They're both right.
But the thing about Draymond, listen, say what you want, but when he goes down his resume, defense player of the year, 4-time All-Star, 4 championships, 2-time gold medalist, those are all undeniable facts. He's also, I think, one of the best passing, one of the best passers in the league, one of the best screeners in the league. Like sometimes he clogs things up offensively just because of the shooting, but a lot of Steph Curry's threes have come because of passing and/or screening with Draymond.
And he's absolutely driven his team insane for a decade. And Dillon Brooks probably gives the Grizzlies some headaches.
No, Dillon shot selection.
You can remove probably. He does.
Yeah, no question.
It's not the same things, but he definitely drives them insane with it.
I will say this. I think Dillon drives. Taylor Jenkins would have more hair if he didn't coach Dillon Brooks. I'm pretty confident in saying. I think Dillon drives the front office.
And by the way, Dillon has
crazy.
spectacular hair.
Oh,
Dillon definitely wins.
The braids are always tight, But no. But you know what? You know what though? Like unless they are successful getting one of these like Mikal Bridges or OG Anunobies that they've tried to get, in other words, unless they can get one of the best defensive wings in the league, I think it's going to be tough for them to move on from Dillon Brooks because he is 100% deserving of being an
Don't you think Dillon
player.
Brooks is a big winner here? Because like Stephen A talked about him for 10 minutes today on First Take.
Yes, listen, he has been lifted up. Draymond Green getting in a back and forth with Dillon Brooks is 1,000% a win for Dillon Brooks because of what Tim said at the beginning. These are not equal players. They're not remotely close to equal players. Draymond Green is a Hall of Famer. Dillon Brooks is not. That's very easy to say. However, because Draymond Green is now in this feud with Dillon Brooks has been lifted up to the level of Draymond Green, at least in this instance.
Shannon Sharp thing.
But I'm saying this.
In particular.
This is the thing. Forget the Shannon Sharp thing. That was a moment in time. This is a long-standing now thing with Draymond Green and Dillon Brooks. You have Draymond Green going on his podcast talking about Dillon Brooks. That turns it into a story, giving Dillon Brooks the ability to come into the game and say, "Oh yeah, I was going to wear a clown shirt. I decided not to." The fact that he's even having this back and forth is amazing.
You know what is great for Dillon Brooks? The fact that he hasn't. I don't believe he has been on an all defensive team. I'm pretty.
No.
Okay.
No.
He hasn't. He should be, and he needs attention. He needs notoriety. That's why he was so excited when Tim Keown said, "Hey, I'm doing a story on it." And he said, "You're going to get some really good stuff from me." And he sure enough did.
Smart
because
story
he's
from
not,
bosses
as he says in that story, he's not going to be a guy who gets a lot of steals. He's not going to be a guy who blocks a lot of shots. You have if you dig into the analytics as they do in that story, there's no question this guy deserves to be an all defensive player, but he needs the attention. And guess what? He's got a whole lot of attention on him.
Well,
now.
there was a play tonight where he blocked a Curry 3 in the corner.
Yeah, just smothers them, and then Steph tries to get it off, and he swatted the thing in the fourth row.
Steph did his whole relocate thing. It was pretty damn impressive. It was
Yeah.
when they put together the edit for his
The issue with Dillon Brooks is not at that end of the court. It's just very simple. The reason he's a bad player most of the time is he is a horrendous offensive player because of his horrendous decision making.
I'm not going to let you say he's a bad player. I'm not going to let you say he's a bad player. The reason he can
bad
be
offensive
frustrating,
player.
the reason that he's not going to get $20 million a year is because his shot selection will absolutely drive you crazy.
Yeah, I said he's
I'm not going to let you say that arguably the best on-ball defender in the NBA
bad
is
offensive player.
He said
offensive player. He's a bad offensive player.
He's not a bad offensive player. He hurts the team times because he guns.
That's why he's a bad offensive player. If he
I'm not going to disagree.
If he didn't do that,
yeah,
it would be fine. But this is like the Nikola Jokic thing. He's a bad offensive player.
Let me rephrase
shooting like that.
Let me rephrase.
Then it would be a much different story.
What's going on right now
towards the hoop
kind of reminds me of something Gilbert Arenas said years ago. When LeBron had this back and forth with Deshaun Stevenson with the Wizards. Dillon's a better player than Deshaun Stevenson, but
by the way, Dillon Brooks is shooting 38% from the field and 32% from three.
Let him tell his damn Deshaun Stevenson story and shut up.
I'm just emphasizing that. That's all.
Come on, Deshaun Stevenson stories, please.
But this was a back and forth, and LeBron, basically compared himself to Jay-Z and Deshaun Stevenson to Soulja Boy, who had whatever, I can't remember the name of his hit song, but it was the hit at the time. And, it was a pretty powerful smack. And then Jay-Z dropped some remix of one of his songs in the middle of the series and changed a verse. I think Blow the Whistle was, and put Deshaun Stevenson in the song. And, then Soulja Boy himself shows up at the next Wizards game and they have this whole little thing. And I remember asking Gilbert Arenas during the series, during the back and forth, it was a classic back and forth of that series, about Deshaun Stevenson, basically getting worked over by LeBron because he was working him over. He had moments when he got under LeBron's skin. But LeBron's going to win that. And Gilbert was like, are you kidding me? Jay-Z just put him in a song. This is the greatest 2 weeks of this guy's life. He's absolutely the winner. And Gilbert was right. And so I say Dillon Brooks the big winner here. Now we got bigger discussion to have about where the Grizzlies are headed as a franchise.
By the way, and then you remember Deshaun Stevenson was a nice role player on that 2011 Mavs team. And if you want to talk about the best 2 weeks of his life,
no question.
Got all kinds of trash talking on LeBron, especially right after the championship. He saw some people partying and bought one of their shirts that he wore on the plane home that said, "Tell me how my dirt tastes." And then
he then signed with the New Jersey Nets next season, which I covered him when he had an ATM in his house.
Yes, and then he also
I think that was when he was in Orlando. He had the ATM, but yes,
well, the house was in Orlando. By the way, Jet Terry, when he got the Larry O'Brien trophy tattooed on him before that season started, that was from Deshaun Stevenson's personal tattoo artist when they had a preseason party at his Orlando place. And then Deshaun Stevenson, it was a couple days, I want to say, after the championship game and the parade, when they told, hey, don't put a microphone in front of Deshaun, he stumbled across the stage and got in front of the microphone. He was found wandering aimlessly at some random apartment complex that didn't know where he was. Deshaun Stevenson's best 2 weeks of his life were during and immediately after the 2011 finals.
Yes,
going over getting in the Jay-Z song, I can assure you.
Very, very few people over the course of the last 20 years have really gotten over on LeBron. Even the Warriors, who sent him home 3 times, he'll always have 3-1 on him. Always, okay? Those Mavericks got over on him. And he
sure did.
Hated Jason Terry, and he hated Deshaun Stevenson, and they'll have it for the rest of their lives. And I'll never forget, and I hate to devolve into more story time. I'll never forget when LeBron moved on and played for the Heat, or Jason Terry moved on and was with the Celtics.
Mhm.
And there was this one game in Boston, and Jason Terry was out of position in transition, and LeBron destroyed him.
Yeah, that dunk. That's just one of the most vicious dunks of all time.
And I remember, in Boston, you sit, where the media sits. Bontemps lived there for years. You sit right next to the radio. Cornbread Maxwell, Cedric Maxwell, is the radio man for the Celtics for years. I still remember the sound he made. You can find it if you. Google it.
You can look it up.
You can still remember the sound he made, and it wasn't words; it was a sound. So the next day, the Heat move on the road trip, and the next day they're having a practice, and LeBron, I don't know this for 100%, but like I'm pretty sure LeBron arranged with a reporter to ask him about the dunk. And it happened. And he basically said, I was glad it happened to him. I was glad that it happened.
An incredible moment.
I'll just give you the quote.
Okay.
It's one of my this is what LeBron said. It's one of my better ones. And the fact that it happened to JT makes it that much sweeter, because we all know JT talks too much sometimes, and I'm glad it happened to him. I remember
That's awesome.
I was smiling. I couldn't get to my computer fast enough. I was like, I don't move fast. It's kind of obvious. I was in second gear. I always used to say that I only have 2 speeds, slow and dead stop. Okay.
Just like Luka.
Let me just say before
just like Luka and Kevin Durant, both.
Yeah.
Well, but before we move on to the injured superstars, let me just say that I'm really trying hard. I'm like Samuel L. Jackson in Pulp Fiction. Is that reference too old? And he says, I'm trying to be the shepherd. I'm trying to be the shepherd on the Warriors. I really am. I'm trying to.
I hear you.
Respect that they're a champion that doesn't get up for the regular season. I'm trying to respect their numbers when they play together. I'm trying to remember that over 20 years, the trap that people fall into every single year is that the playoffs are anything like the regular season. I am trying to do it, but God, they're making it hard.
Dude, the only teams with the worst road records now are the Spurs and the Rockets. And, I had Kendra Andrews on the hit YouTube show Howdy Partners this week, and we're discussing reasons to believe in the Warriors and reasons to doubt. And like the number one reason to doubt is they are literally one of the league's worst road teams. And it's crazy because, we've mentioned that the historic streak, long streak in history of winning at least one road game, whatever it is now, 27-28 series.
Yep.
I mean, not only do they get their asses kicked on the road a lot. Like they are, for whatever reason, and Steve Kerr was talking about this tonight, like for whatever reason, they are a completely disconnected team on defense on the road. Well,
that's the thing. Like last year when they won the title, they were the number 2 defense in the league. Number 2.
Yeah.
Right now they're 18th, and I didn't. The numbers haven't populated. By the morning, in 12 minutes when the sun comes up, they could be in the 20th or whatever because they weren't great tonight.
Oh, they were horrific tonight against a team that didn't have a superstar point guard.
Bontemps, what am I supposed to do? I like what Draymond Green says. I don't get out of bed for games in March. He's right. I like. What am I supposed to say?
Yeah,
but at some point, it's got to matter, right?
I mean, look, I've been saying, and they are populated on NBA.com, and they're still 18th. I mean, I've been saying for a while that they're my pick to win the West by default, and it's really only because I have no faith in any of these other teams, right? And
because you totally disrespect the Denver Nuggets is why it is. But go on.
Well, I need to see Denver do it in the playoffs. Again, as we've talked about multiple times, this is all wide open for Denver. It's all wide open for them. There's not going to be any excuses if they don't win this time.
Denver, number 1 clutch defensive team of the last decade.
That's right. So,
Oh, baby.
And as a transition,
Hold on. What does that pose, Wendy? Wendy,
I don't know.
What are you like smoking a cigarette? You're so satisfied from that statement that you got to smoke a cigarette? My goodness.
I was just looking up and just pondering.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN Plus right now.